Hi my loves, you are welcome to another sewing tutorial on olives, and in this video I'll share with you how to make this pleat and also attach it to an off shoulder that we've already sewn last week. So do keep on watching, and if you are yet to watch the sewing tutorial of the off shoulder, I'll leave the link in the description box. Let's get right into this. Before recording, I started pleating myself, and this is the beginning of my pleating, and I'm going to explain everything to you. Okay, the total width of the pleat we want is 1 inch. Okay, so we are going to be pleating about ½ inch like this, and also be pleating this way. So that's what we are looking for. The total of 3 inches. That's the width we need to mark before we pleat. I'm using a material called scuba, which is the same material I used for the dress, and the lengthwise of this fabric is 60 inches. So that's the full length I'll be using for the pleat. Now the width I use is 20 inches. Okay, I use 20 inches. This is the length, but the width where the marks are is 20 inches. Wherever I'm marking right now, the width there is 20 inches. Okay, now I mentioned that we are looking for a total measurement of 3 inches, right? So I'm going to mark my 3 inches like this, and I'll put these points into a straight line. Okay, and within these 3 inches I'm going to mark half inch away like this, ½ inch like this, ½ inch like this. So with my fingers I'll bring them together, and by the time I press it, let me just pin for you to see, and by the time I press it, it's going to fall within the 3 inches we've marked, and the width will be 1 inch. So I'm going to continue marking this half inch, and I'll mark them into a straight line. This is how it looks like, and you should have something like this as well. Okay, so I'm going to continue marking 3 inches away from each line, 3 inches, 3 inches, and marking the ½ inch on both sides, right? Just like this, you see, and I'll put all of them into a straight line. Now I'm marking this at the right side of the material, and the type of chalk I'm using disappears by the application of heat. I'll begin by holding the pleats and pinning them in place, and what I'm doing here is to make sure that the pin passes through the lines that I have marked. If they do not pass, they are going to affect the subsequent pleats. Okay, so here is okay. I'll continue to pleat. Now instead of ironing, pleats usually pleat and you iron alongside, right? But this particular one, since it is scuba, it is thick, and while ironing it is going to be difficult to get the perfect pleat we are looking for. Okay, so what I intend to do is, after pinning, I'm going to stitch along the line I have pinned, the white line that we see. Now whatever I just did to this pleat, I'm going to continue doing it to each line that I have marked, and continue marking and holding with pin. So after I'm done, I'm just going to stitch. After stitching, by the time I press again, it's just going to fall on the line that we want. Okay, so I'm going to continue with the other one. I'll continue pinning and repinning until I get it right. It is very important. I'll continue doing all of this, and I'm going to use a basting stitch to stitch the line. I'm going to use a gathering stitch. Okay, this way after ironing I can easily rip the gathering stitch. All we want is pleat. We do not want any stitch, we just want a pleat. But since the material I am using is very thick, and while ironing it does not want to stay in place, I figured this is the best way I could solve this problem. Okay, so this is how it looks like. I have pinned. I'll hold again and pin. I'll stress on this again, make sure the pin passes through both lines. Okay, so what I did was, maybe the pins will not be enough, just like mine. Okay, so I pin as much as I can and I stitch. I come back to pin and I stitch, and after doing all of this, I decided to press it so well, and this is how it looks like. I ended on the way just like this, and it looks like it will not be enough. I just divided it into two so I could join them together. The width I use is 20 inches, right? But the width of the pleat I need is just about 4.5 inches, so the 20 inches is more than enough. So all I'm going to do is to bring them together like this. So it's going to be a very long pleat, and I'll join it with a permanent stitch, okay, not a gathering stitch or a basting stitch. So after dividing into two, what I have here is 11.5, right? And the width I mentioned I need is 4.5 inches, so it will be enough for both pleats. Okay, so this is how it looks like after joining the permanent stitch, which is here. Earlier I mentioned I was going to use a gathering stitch to stitch the pleats together, and this is how they are looking. They are even ready to rip off. Okay, so after stitching, all I did was to just press. I tell you, taking time to stitch was a good thing. It just helped me to press, and then the pleats came out so beautiful, and I'm glad. So let's go ahead to draft the actual shape of the pleat. So here is my paper folded into two equal parts. From this angle, I'll start by marking my starting line, and I'll also move on to measure for the pleat. It starts from this point like this under the breast and goes round up like this, and then you take the tape around the arm to the back. And then the second one starts around a seam line from the hip down like this, from the hip, right? You move the tape up to the waist and then also move back. So this is where you determine where exactly you want the back to also stop, because the style we are having, we can't see the back, so you just imagine however you want your back to be. Okay, now the pleat that goes around the bust area is the longest one, and mine is 30, so divided by 2 is 15. So the paper folded into 2, so you have to divide the measurement by 2 as well. So this is 15. The length or the depth of the pleat is 4.5. That is what I choose to use. So I'm going to mark this 4.5 from the borderline I have marked like this. I'll square it. Is it a square or rectangle? I'll mark it down like this, okay, and find the midpoint, and also mark the midpoint like this. The space I have here is all I need, okay, so I'm going to fold it into 2 from the center I marked, and then we'll begin to curve our shape. Okay, now I marked down about 3 inches from the center like this, and then I curved it. The lower part I used about 1/2 inch, and then I connected the 2 points together with my hip curve. So this is what I have. I'll move on to cut it out. So this is what I have, and after cutting, I realized that the lower part is too pointed, but looking at the style, it is not that pointed. Okay, so I went ahead to mark about 8 inches. That is more than twice the distance I have. Okay, and then I just connected it with the same 1/2 inch at the lower part. Here is what it looks like, and it's the same as what I see, I may say. So I just went ahead to just blend it together. So whatever we just did to the bigger one, we are going to do the same thing to the smaller one. Okay, so comparing the first draft to the second one, you can see a vast difference. It is so pointed. Okay, so for the second pleat, which is small, this is how it looks like. So this is the one with a length of 30, and the smaller one was about less than 20. So it's the same width as 4.5. Okay, the length is different, but the curve is the same. So you see that after folding both of them together, the lower parts are the same, it's just that the length is different. Okay, yeah, so that is it. We'll move on to place all of this on our pleat, pin it in place, and cut them out. So here is what I have. If you are following what I'm doing, you should also have something like this. I hope so far you've grabbed something. I hope so. So the next step is to stitch the midpoint, which is important. You remembered we marked it, right? So you just make a top stitch on it with the brown paper on it, or with your pattern paper on it. And this stitch should be a permanent stitch. Okay, you are making this a permanent stitch. This is what it looks like. I think this is the short one. This is how it looks like behind, and you can see the basting stitch opening its mouth that I want to get out. We will remove it soon. This is the longer one as well. I made a top stitch at the midpoint of the pattern paper. Okay, the very last thing is to just rip the brown paper off. This is how I did mine. I just ripped one side like this, and then it was just easy to rip the other one. Simple, right? Now, before I ended up having a long pleat, you remember that I joined two pleats together, right? So I am scared that it might just come out easily. Even though I used a permanent stitch, I'm just going to use a zigzag stitch to just reinforce it so it doesn't remove at any point in time. Okay, now ready to also remove the basting stitches. Here is how it goes. You locate one side of the pleat and then pick one thread out and pull it, and it will just easily remove. You know, there are two threads coming together to make a stitch, right? So you locate one at one side and then you remove it out. You pick the other side as well and you remove it out. It was fun removing these threads. I can't tell why. It was just fun that I'm easily ripping them off with my fingers. This is what it looks like right now. Now we'll move on to the placement. If you have a mannequin, it is easier, or even a dress form, it is easier to just do the placement. But I called a friend over to help me while I have my off shoulder on me, and then we place the pleat on it. Okay, so here we are looking at the style on the phone, and then I'm also looking at myself in the mirror so I could see whatever we are doing. Okay, so we are going to start from the underbust or around the waist area. It goes this way, just like we measured on the dress form earlier, and then it goes towards the back. Okay, so here she's saying that it's supposed to move up a little bit, so I repin again from that point, and we just continued arranging and placing the pleat on the dress. And while we do all of this, we are going to pin onto the dress as well. Okay, so just watch the way we place both pleats on the dress. So now at this point I realized that the back had an excess. You know, the pleat was opening up, so the length became longer than the actual one I marked. Okay, so the excess that we had at the back, looking at what we have here, after she pinned, this is how it looked like. There was an excess. Okay, so I just dropped it to follow the seam line of the back. Mind you, we can see the back of the style, so you just do whatever style you want at the back. Okay, so we just place it towards the seam line like this. I thought this was better than any other tail. I don't know whatever would have come to my mind, but I think this is better like this. Just pinning it along the seam line will give it a style. In case you don't want yours to be as long as mine looks like, I will advise that while measuring, when you get to the back, just stop a little away from your arm so it can just end right at the back. Okay, I don't know if you get what I mean. Maybe it can just stop right at the seam line of the back instead of dropping down. Okay, if that makes sense. Now we'll move on to the second one, which starts around the hip line this way. If you look at the style, you know how it goes. Okay, so we also place it together. It also had an excess, so I just pinned it to the dress and then also locate it down to the seam line of the hip like this. Do you see that? So I think this was also the best way I could make use of the excess of the pleats I had. So we just went ahead to pin it together. The very last thing is to top stitch on the dress. Now, whoever I made this dress for, it is not mine, it's for my auntie. She's dark in complexion, so leaving this green fabric like this with a dark complexion wouldn't go so much. So I decided to embellish along the stitching line of the pleat so it can brighten up the person's complexion. I'll finish the whole process by top stitching along the center of the pleat. I couldn't get the rightful owner to fit the dress, but I went ahead to fit it myself so we can all see how beautiful it came out. I really hope you enjoyed watching and learning with Olives. Please let me know what you think in the comment section. Do like, share, subscribe to the channel, turn on your notification bell. We would love to see your outcome. Share with us on Instagram at olivesgh. And don't end by watching this tutorial without saying anything to me in the comment section. Thank you for watching. I'll see you in the next one. I know I said goodbye, but I went on Pinterest after editing and I found different pictures on how to style the pleats, which means you can feel free to depict or actually recreate the styles yourself. And this is how the back looks like. It's kind of different from what I did, right? Anyways, thank you once again for watching. Bye.